I am now going to call on our next presenter, Crispin Govern, who I believe has no slides. Crispin, you can correct me. Crispin, you could just tell me, do you have slides, or are you that you are sharing, or are you just speaking yourself?
No slides.
No slides, perfect. Okay, so I will continue. So, Crispin has served for more than 15 years as a climate change negotiator for the government of St. Lucia, mostly as lead technical negotiator. He has negotiated on or facilitated negotiations on Article 6 of the Convention and response measures. He serves on the Paris Committee on Capacity Building, and since 2017, he has had the position of Program Director, Climate and Disaster Resilience at the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, where he is still closely moderating UNFCCC negotiations. I call on you now, Crispin, and I will, even though we're in a hurry, you can speak nice and slowly, and I will give you a mark at 5 minutes to go and 1 minute to go of your 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Christine, and good day, everyone. I will be brief, actually, partly because of time constraints. But I think to start off, it's fair to say that since I joined the negotiations way back in 2000, the role of non-state actors in the negotiation process has certainly grown. And if we fast forward to, well, almost to the Paris Agreement, the Paris Agreement encourages parties to work closely with non-national actors to catalyze efforts to strengthen action regarding adaptation and mitigation action, among other things. And it also encourages non-party stakeholders to register their climate actions in the non-state actor zone for climate action platform. Now, the question we're contemplating is how we can make better use of non-national actors. Broadly speaking, we can look at making better use of non-national actors from two aspects, namely from that of the formal negotiation process and that of action at the country level. Now, time doesn't allow me to go into extensive detail, but I think I can focus on one or two insights. So, from the context of the aspect of the formal process, how to effectively capture the inputs and thinking of non-party actors. I think one of the things that we can do is to strengthen the architecture to capture the concerns and opinions of these actors. And there, as a previous presenter said, 46% of the actors who at the last couple were non-party actors. Now that's a large number, but of course, at the end of the day, it is decisions that state actors make. In other words, the formal negotiations, the decisions are based on the views and the consensus among state actors, and that has been and understandably is the how the system functions. But I think we can take some practical steps, and one of these can include establishing, for example, regionally balanced focus groups to contemplate specific issues or topics that can be not just noted for the record, but actually factored into the decision-making process. So, for example, we could look at, say, if we want to address the question of how can the private sector better feature in ramping up climate finance. Very often we have these forums, or we have these conversations and so on. It's recorded, but it does not necessarily focus. It's not necessarily factored directly into any decision-making process. So if we say the same way we have there are questions that are required to be answered by state actors on the negotiation process, and there's normally a time window for doing that, and these views can be compiled. I think if we have specific questions that can be targeted at non-state actors, how to get, for example, another example could be how to get, local governments engaged. And so you can have those focus groups regionally balanced, of course, to ensure that you have representation from, the various regions and so on. And those focus groups can actually come up with answers that can be contemplated in a more formal way, and hopefully help to guide the process. Because obviously, how climate finance, to use my original example, can be factored in is going to come down. I think the private sector can probably best answer that question. Now, at the country level, engaging stakeholders. I think very often we talk about engaging stakeholders, but it isn't always a straightforward thing, especially in developing countries and small island developing countries like ours, because there are stakeholders that we have not normally spoken to in larger countries where the corporate community has long had a voice on many issues. The corporate sector in small island developing states, for example, has not always engaged on climate related matters. They have not always spoken or got engaged in, say, in climate finance and mitigation, adaptation, at least not in the formal sense. And they have often, they may not have gotten deeply engaged in things like NDCs and NDC implementation and so on. So there's actually a need to establish those non-traditional conversations and build them up and find ways to engage. And I think we have to look at identifying the stakeholders, identifying their stakes, learning what their needs and concerns are. And I think also it's important to incentivize their participation. So why should our small and medium enterprises get involved in mitigation and adaptation? How can they do it? When concern is always the bottom line and not just environmental concerns and doing what is good for the planet, because businesses generally exist to make a profit for So I think also we have to look at including them where possible in a meaningful way, not just in consulting them when we're preparing for negotiations, but if wherever possible actually engaging, if possible bringing them on national or regional delegations and so on. And I think that effort can also be helped by capacity building and the development of and dissemination of knowledge products. And so thank you.
Crispin, I'm wondering if you can still hear us.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, good, fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And you've got about 2 minutes left. Oh, but I believe you're now muted.
Yeah, I try to tailor my presentation to basically suit of 5 or 6 minutes, because I thought I had only 5 or 6 minutes, so I thought I'd fallen within that zone. I guess if I can give a quick example, we're currently working on an initiative called the Eastern Caribbean Solar Challenge, and we're trying to engage not just the private sector, the corporate community, but also households, and trying to get them to install or accelerate the installation of photovoltaics, solar electricity on their roofs, and also we're trying to get the government to work. So this is actually the first time in our region where we're trying to get all the partners together, because people have been doing their thing on their own. So right now we actually have to find the entry point to actually engage those stakeholders. Okay, as they say, what's in it for me, so to speak? Why should I get involved? I mean, yeah, it's good to save the planet and everything, but so we have to find, we have to tell them, look, it's good for your bottom line. It's good corporate social responsibility, etc. That's the private sector. Households, that you can cut your energy bill and so on. So we have to be able to tailor the messaging, tailor the marketing, and actually get people to buy into this process. So it is, it's actually learning by doing as we go along, and it's a very interesting process. All right, and I think it's fair to say that we are still learning as we go. But the fundamental point I'm trying to make is that it's not always it isn't, you can't always take it as a given that all the experience and the modalities exist at the country level for engaging non-state actors. Some are more. There's a longer tradition of doing that. Others is still emerging. For example, your financial sector, getting them to buying into, at least in our part of the world, getting them to buy in investment in the climate business. And it's only now that some of them are beginning to offer specific products tailored towards climate and so on, or climate change in terms of adaptation and mitigation, resilience building. So I think I will again stop. Thank you.